What's up, everyone? This is Silver Slayer, and welcome to your daily silver stacking video. Thank you, and I really do mean thank you for tuning in and supporting the silver stacking community. Make sure you like these videos, even leave a comment and just say what's up. It helps the videos get recommended, and I hope you do that for other silver stacking channels that are trying to push the narrative as well, right? We're all trying to get the word out and really expose not only the corrupt financial system, but also the true value of silver. This is not going to be a political video. This is not a political channel. This is strictly what affects the price of silver. I don't care if you're left, right, up, down, front, center, sideways. I want to talk about what's happening in the economy, but not my opinion on that, but what's gonna affect the price of silver during this current period of time, whether it's the silver shortage, which I talk about a lot, or this could also translate into decisions that are making around the world. So on that note, silver confiscation is actually a lot more realistic and possible than I think people realize. I really do think there is going to be a time where they consider it, and I'm being serious about that. If you don't think that they would do this, you're really underestimating, one, the severity of silver, the silver shortage and how critical it is, and two, you're probably not realizing how many times this has happened throughout history. I made a video probably a year ago that covered every time the government or a government has confiscated the people's precious metals. They've done it throughout different countries numerous times, right? Probably 7+ times just in the last century, and usually for the same reason. It's the country needing something of wealth, which is gold, in times of economic uncertainty or turmoil. It's usually around war. So with that said, we know there's a massive silver shortage, and we know that things are getting very shaky around the world. Now, this time around, I think it would be silver more so than gold that they would be after. Money is irrelevant in terms of dollars, because we're trying to get ourselves out of debt by replacing it with more debt. That's like trying to pay off a credit card with another credit card. It's going to catch up. And the trillions of dollars we're spending or overspending from Joe Biden going to come from somewhere. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency. Everyone across the globe relies on the dollar's strength, but the dollar's lost 98% of its purchasing power, and we're $29 trillion in debt. So you can see the reasoning for needing or confiscating precious metals. But I want to take it a step further in terms of the silver shortage, of the solar panels, the Green New Deal or the New Green Deal. That's really gonna push the narrative of silver scarcity and why we need it so much. I couldn't imagine Joe Biden coming out and saying that we have to put that deal on on pause because we don't have enough silver. They're going to get it from somewhere. Yes, low supply, high demand pushes the price up. Yes, we'll all get a pretty penny. But if you think about the aftermath, they're still going to get the silver somehow, whether they start learning how to mine it better out of the ground, but there's only so much silver in the ground, whether they mine it from space, right, which is actually realistic. NASA's sending out a rover this year, or they kick in our front door and steal our safes, or they confiscate it from us. That honestly is the most plausible. Mining innovation out of the ground is very hard and tricky, especially with so many boundaries and borders that are blocked. Space mining isn't here yet, so the only place they could really get silver from is us. But it's scarce, so they would have to give us incentive buying it from us. This has happened numerous times. We know that the most famous case is the Executive Order 6102 from FDR in 1933, and it's actually a very interesting situation from the terms he used. He said, you have to turn in all of your gold, or you will spend 10 years in prison or pay a $10,000 fine, or both. That is pretty serious. Back in 1933, $10,000 is 6 digits in today's time, plus 10 years in prison or both. That's pretty serious. That showed the severity of things. Now, I want to go over this article and talk about it. And this one's looking like it's going to mainly come from the executive order perspective, but they also go over reasons it may happen and then also why it may be unlikely. So I think this is going to be a great article to cover. And I just want people to understand that this isn't some myth. This isn't some put on your tinfoil hat that they might take your silver. This possibly could happen. And honestly, it makes a lot more sense than when they did or some of the reasons they did before. So in 1933, American President FDR created the Emergency Banking Act, which stated that those who own gold must turn it into an approved bank. This did not include any personal jewelry, however. Now, it was jewelry and specific coins that they didn't want. You couldn't sell your gold to anyone else. And this is actually similar to when they banned silver. They actually did ban silver. In 1980, the Hunt brothers cornered the market, owned up to 77% of the global silver supply, and I mean literally 77% of all the silver in the world. And they had these contracts on the COMEX, and they turned all of them in for physical delivery. Now, obviously, you know the world needed more silver than they had. The Hunt brothers had it all. So what did they do? They made a law on the spot banning silver. You could only sell it. And you could only sell it to banks. You couldn't sell it to your friends. You couldn't sell it anywhere. You had to turn it in, which actually killed the price from its all-time high ever, $50, all the way back down to $9. And it was called Silver Rule 7. And then that led to Silver Thursday when the price got cut in half, basically. So silver has been banned before. So the Executive Order 6102 was a presidential order signed by FDR. Now this is the hoarding of gold coins, gold bullion, for the depression, right? They're trying to combat the depression. Times had been tough, and hoarding the gold only made economic growth stall further. In addition, the order was designed to help the Federal Reserve increase the money supply during the Depression, because the Federal Reserve Act required the Fed to have 40% gold backing on notes that issued it. Now, if you think about recession/depression, that's today's times as well. If you look at interest rates, if you look at the rate hikes they're trying to do, if you look at the amount of debt we're in now, you could see why this could happen. But then if you also remember, keep incorporating silver's critical role in the next digital age for the next decade, and there's barely any of it, this is the perfect recipe. The US Mint sold 5 million American Eagles, silver Eagles, in the first month of January. Usually they mint around 13 million for the whole year and are still having a hard time finding 13 million. So I think this year the silver shortage is really going to come to light, become in the spotlight beyond just us silver stackers. And that itself could start to plant the seed or that thought of confiscation. Now, the executive order required all those who own gold coin, bullion, or certificates to deliver them to the Federal Reserve before May 1st, 1933. The order did, however, exempt certain cases of ownership, such as industrial uses, art, and other professions. In addition, people were allowed to have a small amount of gold, $100 in gold coins, or recognized collectible gold coins. The government paid people $20.67 per ounce for their gold. So they still would buy it off of us. They would pay us probably spot price. So the price of gold from the treasury was then raised to $35 per ounce. And remember, FDR is the one that also changed the gold to silver ratio from 16 to 1 to 75 to 1. And this is part of the reason why, a big chunk of the reason why. So the profit that the government realized on the gold was used to fund the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which was part of the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. So if gold was the thing they went to save their butts, then right now precious metals would be that same thing. I could even see something along the lines of confiscating both. if you look at gold as money and silver as the industrial side, they both make perfect sense uh, to be wanted by the government for two different reasons, critical reasons. Numerous seizures and prosecutions followed as some chose to try to hold their gold. Eventually, it became legal for citizens of the United States to purchase, hold, sell, or deal in gold after President Gerald Ford signed a bill stating so in 1974. Took his signature along with the act of Congress to repeal the previous laws regarding gold ownership based on what occurred in the past. And by the way, let me stop. Did you see how long of a time that was, 1933, and then stating this bill in 1974? That's a long time. Based on what occurred in the past, many often wonder if their gold could be confiscated today. Some would argue that, yes, in fact, it could, while others would say there's no way. This seems to be a question that does not have a right or wrong answer. Here we will outline some of the information surrounding the issue. So, reasons it could happen. The US dollar continues to lose value, which definitely, and this was before the virus hit. So if they only knew back then what's happening today, man. In fact, the US dollar has been declining for years. As soon as we got rid of the gold standard in 1971, the dollar purchasing power, or I guess, shot through the roof, or I would say declined or collapsed instantly. If you see a chart, it's sickening to see as soon as we got rid of our money backed by gold what happened. So the dollar's status as the reserve currency for the world is being threatened and does not enjoy the same security it used to. And that's what I was just talking about earlier. USD is the world reserve currency. So if and by the way, the dollar's strength is only as strong as people think it is. So if people start to think the dollar is not strong, it literally isn't strong. Fiat currencies fail over time. These paper currencies lose their purchasing power. It's designed to do so. Some type of potential currency crisis could possibly reinforce the government's appetite for gold, and we're definitely in one of those right now. Some people question the U.S. government gold reserves and feel that they reported gold reserves in Fort Knox and other locations do not really exist or are significantly smaller than reported. Some claim that a lack of independent audits of gold reserves make the reported amount seem a little less credible. Sovereign debt issues remain a concern in today's society. The U.S. has a large amount of debt, as many other foreign countries do. Why it may be unlikely. So 1933 was simply a very different time. Government was fighting deflation, not inflation, because the dollar was tied to the gold standard. Taking gold was the only way to increase the monetary base. Today, the Fed can simply print more dollars, and if when it deems necessary, because the dollar is not tied to anything. And that's what you see, quantitative easing, printing more and more and more dollars, flooding the market, which is decreasing the dollar's purchasing power. But over time, by the way, have you ever seen a third world country? Their dollar is so deflated. They carry their money in trash bags and weigh their money on scales at the cash register because their dollar is so worthless. It's like a US dollar having the purchasing power of like 5 or 10 cents. So to go to the grocery store and spend, $17, they have to hand over hundreds of these dollar bills. That's why you see like the Zimbabwe $1 trillion bill. That's why you see people holding signs on those like cardboard signs. Poor as can be, saying broke billionaire. The dollar's headed the same direction. It's just going to take longer. And the only reason the United States is the wealthiest country in the world, well, now China, is because we own the most gold. That's why. And we consider a country to country's basis of wealth depending upon how much precious metals or gold they have. Let's apply that same principle from a person to person basis. Silver Slayer is saying no matter how much money I have in my bank account, what's determining my wealth is how much gold I have. Yes, if you want to be literal. So let's keep on. Let's keep on keeping on. So even if the government did confiscate all the gold out there currently, it would not even put a dent in the U.S. debt, right? Donald Trump has actually jokingly mentioned bringing back the gold standard, but we're way too deep in the hole. That would not fix anything, and I do think that there is going to be a monetary reset, but I think it would be more crypto There's even a coin called USD coin, US dollar coin. It's pegged to the dollar. If there was going to be a crypto that's our actual money, I would think it would be USD coin, or Tether, which is pegged to the dollar, or Ripple, which is owned by central banks. Now, there's something interesting to go into with that. If you think about a sci-fi movie in 50, 100 longer years than that, think about their money. It would be digital. Even nowadays, nobody pays with cash, especially now since people are afraid of the virus. It's all mobile banking, right? Digital, cashless nations, Bitcoin ATMs. It's all digital nowadays. You don't see anyone using cash anymore. So, some state governments are now legalizing and gold and silver as legal tender money. So it seems unlikely that these steps would be taken if there was a possibility of the government confiscating gold. If gold is confiscating your money, needless to say, it does not seem very realistic. Gold and silver and other precious metals are typically held by wealthy people, and these wealthy people that support governments through taxes, campaigns, etc. It and that's kind of true, but a lot of us buy gold and silver for the exact opposite reason, why we don't trust banks and governments. That's why we're taking our money, or the power, away from them and putting it into our own hands, right? When you have all your money in a bank account, they you're under their control. If you're in debt, you're a slave to the system. The only time you can take complete control of your wealth is investing in the precious metals. So let's keep. So they go on to say it's also very unlikely that the well-to-do in this country that own gold or silver would allow the government to confiscate their metals, which is true, right? They would likely fight such a law with every legal mean at their disposal, and I feel like they would try to persuade or convince us in a way that wants us to do the good thing. It wouldn't be like, oh man, I have to turn it in, but so I had it. They would try to put it in a way that says that makes you feel good about turning it in, like you're actually helping the cause. In my opinion, that's how they should do it if they were ever going to. So, there may be easier ways for governments to deal with economic or monetary crisis. Look at Cyprus last year when government placed a significant levy on deposit accounts over 100,000 euros. They chose to do this rather than have taxpayers bear the burden of bailout due to large amounts of foreign investment in their banks. The point is that this was likely much easier for the governments to do so rather than going hunting for people's gold. We live in uncertain times and with uncertain world, right? That's so true. One must acknowledge different possibilities. We do, however, face different obstacles today than we did in 1933. In addition, the economic system is very different. One can research this issue and draw his or her own conclusions. However, I mean, it does seem that the notion of government confiscation of gold is a bit far-fetched in today's world. And maybe for gold, but not so much silver, because they only came from this perspective as the dollar. They, they didn't there could be a whole other part that's longer than this even entire article about the reason we need, or they would confiscate our silver due to the lack of supply and how important the demand is going to be for 5G towers, electric vehicles, silver lithium batteries, and solar panels. So yeah, what do you think? Do you think they will confiscate our silver? Will you give it up? Do you think they could, or do you think that's not a possibility anymore? I would love to hear your thoughts. Like the article said, we aren't fortune tellers. Who knows? We're living in crazy times. So don't only expect crazy silver prices, but also expect the unexpected, because a lot is happening, and who knows? I wouldn't be too surprised if there was ever a time for the government to confiscate silver. It would be now. Now makes the most sense. See, I'm going to wrap this video up here. If you thought this video was 1, educational, 2, informational, 3, at least entertaining, make sure to hit the like button. Like I said, if this video gets 600 likes, I'll do a giveaway next weekend. Also, make sure you subscribe. You got to be kept in the loop, and I'm going to do that for you, especially nowadays. You cannot be blindly investing. You know, do you really think, let's say there's two silver stackers. One sits on his couch, doesn't watch anything that has to do with precious metals, just buys silver randomly, um, and just hopes that it goes up. Then there's another person that's watching videos, staying up to date, right? Strategizing. Which one do you think is going to be more successful? It's called a silver stacking strategy for a reason. You're strategizing. It's a strategic decision based off information. I give you the information. That's investing. Gambling is just throwing money, hoping it sticks, with the odds highly against you. Investors try to change those odds into their favor, and you can't do that without the information. So I hope you subscribe for that reason at least. Also, make sure you check out the Silver Stacking podcast. Thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.